Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, while at Austin Film Festival, I got to sit down with writer and director Joe Carnahan. I was tempted to just spend the entire time talking about Smokin' Aces or the A-Team movie or Narc or any of his other projects, but we were there to see a really special movie that he co-wrote and produced called El Chicano. We spend part of the time talking about that and part of the time talking about politics with the election just weeks away. Hope you enjoy. I'm sitting here with Joe Carnahan. Obviously, we could spend hours talking about your career, Smokin' Aces, right, and A-Team, and so many projects, but we're here for El Chicano.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about this film, the kind of franchise that might start from it, the excitement behind it.
You know, it really came out of my dear friend, one of my closest friends, Ben Bray, who's a former stuntman and now director, had this story kind of knocking around for the better part of a decade. And I remember him telling me about it as far back as Smokin' Aces, just this idea of, and even then he was saying, listen, we don't have our own heroes. The Latin community doesn't have its own heroes. You know, a Mexican-American kid, I never knew, you know, I didn't identify with a white billionaire in Bruce Wayne,
yeah,
and an alien from Kansas, you know. So it's like, it was, so, cut 2 years later, and, I had been, he had kind of gone through a series of tragedies. He lost his brother Craig, and which kind of further inspired the story. And then, unfortunately, he lost his daughter Bella at birth, and it was an incredibly traumatic experience, as you might imagine. And me not knowing how to even comprehend something like the loss of a child, I remember telling him, I think, dude, if you can return to that story purely for therapeutic reasons and really kind of give yourself over to it and try to write that script. And he did, and he went off for 8 weeks and wrote this kind of 180-page, it was kind of a memoir, and it was about his brother and obviously his daughter, and I got a hold of it and I said, listen, this is fascinating, dude, but this is not we need the movie, now we need to write this, the screenplay. And I was on Bad Boys 3 at the time, and kind of really disheartened and disillusioned by that experience, because I had a greenlit script, I thought we were ready to go. And I also thought, listen, this franchise doesn't really need me. They're going to be fine. With or without me, they're going to be fine. It's Bad Boys. So, but El Chicano, I thought, did. And so Ben and I went out for like about 6 weeks. Went out to the desert out in Palm Springs and kind of mobbed up and holed up and wrote the script. And I came out of it thinking, this is something I want to go and try to make. And knowing that we were going to face, obviously, a lot of challenges, because it's not something that's it's all Latin cast, which immediately precludes, certain things you're not going to be able to get, it's like, well, who's your movie star? And there was no way we were going to let somebody who wasn't, Latin, especially, we really wanted a Mexican-American, we really wanted someone who embodied the, and Raul Castillo had always been Ben's choice. And so, we knew it was going to be an uphill battle, and it wasn't anything that the studios were going to finance. So we went out, and the crazy way we found these guys in Calgary, these oil sands, oil and gas guys, who had a lot of disposable income and kind of bored, and were really intrigued by the movie business. And Frank Grohl and I had just made Wheelman for Netflix, and we needed some finishing funds. And these guys came on and helped us out. And they said, "What else you got?" And I said, "Well, I have this Mexican American superhero thing," and they kind of, probably against all their better judgment, just kind of jumped in and gave us, $7 million to go and make the movie. So it was really we were very blessed and fortunate that it went that way. It was because it could have gone any number of other ways, and it was so. I was very pleased with, and not that it wasn't miserable and difficult, but it was everybody kind of did it from the best parts of themselves.
When you were originally writing the idea or kind of mobbing up to get the script done, was there an eye towards trying to make sure you didn't go nuts with the locations, or like an eye towards trying to get it made, or was it just let's write the dream project?
No, I think it was an eye toward trying to get it made, because we had a whole we kind of laid out the entire kind of legacy mythology of El Chicano. We couldn't afford to shoot period stuff. Although it was really good, it was great. It was started with the Zoot Suit riots and went into Chavez Ravine when they evicted all the Mexican immigrants to basically build Dodger Stadium. And then went to the Chicano moratorium in 1970 and then the 80s. And, it was really great. We just couldn't afford it. So it was one of those, what do we need to tell the story? Let's just do that. Let's just figure out the most simplistic, straightforward way to tell the story and not kill ourselves, because we know we're never going to get... The fact we got the money we got to make the movie was mind-blowing to me. Anything on top of that was, gravy and cheese. It just wasn't, so we were really mindful of, you're not going to get any more than this. You're not, you know what I mean? You're not getting any more than this, and you have to make do. And so we were very aware of that and very cognizant of that, and we tried to kind of always keep that in the forefront of our thoughts. Like, we don't have the ability to, we don't have any more money.
Yeah. Having been your stunt coordinator for so long, was there any just dream stunt that, like, it's my movie now, we're going to blow this car up this way?
It's funny, man. We did not have the best. We had a kind of a subpar physical effects team in Calgary, and I think in large part, I don't think that these guys weren't talented. I think they were working on other shows and we weren't getting their best effort, which is frustrating. But they had a series of gags that didn't go off, and so the last gag being that at the end there's this kind of duel between El Chicano and Shotgun, the bad guy, and they kind of charge each other, and it's like a suburban versus a motorcycle, and El Chicano puts the bike down, and he hits the bike and thinks he's been triumphant. You realize El Chicano's put grenades on the bike, and it was meant to blow Endo, the Suburban. And one of the last night's shooting, when the gag went off, the ram blew right through the roof and wound up 200 feet on the side, and so that all it did was blow up. It didn't do anything. So now when you see the sequence of the movie, you'd never know that that's not the way we planned it, because it was simply, lemonades from lemon at that point. You get lemons. You can't really, we didn't have the means, the wherewithal to go back and do it. And I think, there may have been dream stuff that we wanted to do, but we knew we just don't have the bandwidth to do it. We got to make this thing really good and smart and dramatic versus trying to do some kind of huge stunt spectacular, because we just don't have the money to pull it off.
Do you think there's anything you brought to the table for Ben as far as helping shepherd him through this experience?
I think just a baseline of support and kind of, having been there and gone through this kind of thing and seen kind of, I think it was important that I lend whatever experiential stuff I could to him, and also we didn't have a studio, we had us, so it was really like, I was just trying to tell him, like, listen, this is kind of the way to do it, and I think this is the way we should do it, and we got to stay on a 24-day schedule. I was really the guy going like this and pointing at my watch more than anything else. Because I think it's his story, it's his vision. Like, my job is to support that, and but also understand that we're on the clock like anybody else.
Do you think about these projects any differently on the ones that you have done the screenplay on versus the ones that you shepherd all the way through yourself as far as directing?
You know what? I think they're all part and parcel the same. Like, they're all. I look at them all as like you have to approach these things and make these movies with a great degree of responsibility and a great degree of I knew we weren't going to get bailed out in terms of, like, there'll be some angel that comes in and endows us with X amount. I always look at these things like, how can we be, again, very, very responsible? How can we tell a really great story? And how can we do something that we know a year from now, we're still going to be working on this thing. No one's seen a dime, and we're still happy and thrilled about the process. And that's really what it was. We really did this from the best parts of our character. Not let's go get paid. It was really like, let's just go make a great movie, and let's see what happens if we can do a Latino superhero film and find a niche and find that market and find the audience for that, which almost 25% of tickets purchased in North America are Latinos, which are radically underserviced. So if you can go and do that, you can make an impact. And I think all the politics and all the other stuff we just happened to get lucky with. It was like, but yeah, I don't think we ever set out to make this thing a barn burner. We just really wanted a great movie, and it starts with the script. We knew the script was really good, so it's like, okay, we can do something with.
Yeah, I had to think when you said he'd had the idea since back in Smoking Aces, going from the fake trailer for Machete to seeing Machete. A lot's happened in the last decade.
Right.
In terms of representation.
It's also not a. It's not a. Machete is still a tongue-in-cheek kind of affair.
Yeah. But it was far less tongue-in-cheek than, say, Nestor Carbonella's Batmanuel.
Yeah.
Which was really when I started trying to reach back for other Latino superheroes, and it's really only recent that they aren't.
It's tough, dude. Because it's a send-up. It becomes satirical because I think maybe the audience is more comfortable with satire in that way, which is weird.
Yeah, that's not a really great line of thought of are you only okay with this if it's a joke?
Yeah. So I think we always approached it like, well, and there's a brief kind of nod to Daredevil, because when I was a kid, when I read Frank Miller's, The Death of Elektra, that was a huge influence on me when I was 11 years old. So, we didn't want to make this in any way comical. It was meant to be a very street level kind of, story about two brothers in a very Dickensian kind of way, something that was, again, I always believe in that great adage about, give the audience what they want in the way they least expect it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And never kind of, always when you can, kind of suborn or subvert expectation, but always give them at least the grasp of the familiar. So you're not trying to tell some radically new story. In certain instances, if you're Chris Nolan and you do Inception, you can get away with that, but you're still setting up, these people are dreaming, and you're in a dream, you know what I mean? And there are still touchstones throughout filmic history. You can go, there's Dreamscape, there's, what was it Brainstorm, what was the one with Chris Walken?
Yeah.
You had...
Yeah, the audience learns this language a little bit over time.
Yeah, and
I think Legion gets by with some stuff because I've
absolutely
seen movies.
Do. Right, that work that you're in this...
Like, I see what you're doing here.
Right, this kind of heightened reality, or alternate reality. So, I think in that respect, it was, we always wanted to approach it with not a grim seriousness, but certainly something that was like, listen, we're not poking fun.
Yeah, a respect for it.
Yeah, because again, I think Ben felt like, well, these guys don't exist, so I'm not going to, why satirize them?
When you said that there's mythology that, you're not going to be able to do the Zoot Suit riots and flashbacks and stuff, but I always feel like when that work is done, whether it's really on screen or not, you can feel that depth to it on most projects. I feel like.
I agree with it.
Is there any piece from that mythology that you would most like if this is a huge hit and you got all the budget you want for the next thing?
Right.
Is there a piece of it you'd most love to go do?
I would love to go do the original, like the Zoot Suit riots and Chavez Ravine and Chicano Moratorium. I think to actually really stage those effectively would be a lot of fun, because they were really cool. They were really, the scenes themselves are really good. I'd love to do that, and then you never know. You go deeper, you go back into the actual Aztec. Do you go that far back? I don't know if that starts to, if that becomes then the thing we fear. Like, let's not satirize. Let's not make it so then it becomes almost a little self-conscious, and I get worried about that. You know what I mean? That scares me. So, but those I'd love to do. I'd love to do those.
Looking across your work, do you feel like you see a theme to the kinds of stories you like to tell, the kinds of relationships you like to explore?
Yeah, it's funny though. I say that, and then now I have a daughter who's going to be 23. I have twin daughters about to turn 4, and I realize the 4 things I'm working on right now all have a female lead, they all still traffic in a kind of a similar vein. But I realize, like, I think it's a lot of response to what's happening now, especially with this kind of and you know, like, people kind of equate this to this kind of the liberal term of this toxic masculinity. I disagree. I think it absolutely is real. I think it's just been given a greater bandwidth and a greater kind of, you know, I see it. I see it with some of the stuff my daughter tells me, some of the stuff, you know, I've witnessed, some of the stuff I've seen just in the business. It's like there's a problem there, man. And and it's like, and as a father and a creator, I guess I feel some onus to address it and to, you know, in the way that I can. You know, again, whatever the little tributaries that I tend to go down, you know, or the you know, the path more traveled. It seems to me that if I can use that, and again, I think what, you know, Frank Grillo and I have always said where War Party is concerned, it's kind of this elevated genre. You know, I don't want to go so far afield that I don't understand what it is we're doing, but I do want to do interesting things and character-based things and stuff that I think is unique. But it's interesting to me now that I find myself leaning more and more into these female-centric stuff, and maybe it's just maybe it's simply to try to create some kind of guideposts or beacons for my daughters to kind of. So it's not like I don't know. I haven't kind of come to terms with all that yet. You know,
my wife and I were talking about this the other day. I feel like that same language learning that helps you get through weirder TV shows also subtly helps in society. I mean, I feel like Modern Family helped a lot of people, whether they really consciously realized it or not.
No, I agree, bro.
You know, I agree. Roseanne back in the day helped.
I agree.
And, you know, I don't want to ascribe crazy societal shifts to television shows necessarily, but it definitely helps. And it started to make it weigh on me a little more, the responsibility of what media I like to support, what I want to write in my own stuff. And so I kind of wonder if that weighs on creators now, and
yeah,
but then how to appropriately respond.
Right. Well, I think the danger is, you know, this kind of, you know, our tendency, I think, right now to kind of self-censor is to me very, very, it's a very precarious place for us to be, because you should never be limited in any way, shape, or form. Now, listen, I say that, but I would never watch one of the Human Centipede films. I would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It holds absolutely no.
Good for Tom Six, but I don't want to sit.
Good for Tom Six. Good for him. Would never knock the guy's film. I just have no interest in seeing that shit. You know. So some of those things I can, you know, I think you kind of moralize about, you know, but at the same time, I do believe that the idea of censoring, self-censorship is a dangerous one. So we got to be very careful, because, you know, we live in a day and age of you know, stuff like cultural appropriation, and I in particular have a huge problem with that, because I think it ascribes a very macro global view of the stuff, which I think is completely wrong-headed. It's like saying somehow that rap belongs more to Jay-Z than it does to Eminem, or jazz belongs more to Miles Davis than it does to Chet Baker, is a idiotic precept and a moron and literally banality kind of, you know, circumscribed. I mean, I just don't. I feel like that stuff, we're getting over our skis, and we're losing the idea of common sense and logic. And I wonder also if we completely eliminate the ability to laugh at ourselves. You know, my buddy Will Sass, who's an actor, said he saw in Santa Monica, maybe a year back, he said, you know, I went to a screening of Blazing Saddles. He's saying, when I tell you it played flat in that room, flat, no one is laughing at anything. That's dangerous. And that's scary to me, because it's like, wait a minute, we can't lampoon ourselves? We can't make fun of ourselves? We can't?
Because there's definitely movies I loved as a kid that I rewatch now and go, wow, that's maybe problematic.
Absolutely.
But with Wilder, just in the last couple of years, I feel like I've rewatched Blazing Saddles fairly recently. And while it's definitely...
people forget Richard Pryor wrote that script with Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
It's like, you know,
But I'm with you.
But I get it, dude. There's certainly moments that I go, oh God, they're cringeworthy. But if we're going to eliminate all those, and we're going to, and we're going to censor everything about that, well, what is that? My brother was telling me that it's the National Theater in is it Denmark, that they're literally changing the titles of old paintings that would be considered offensive. And and that, to me, dude, that kind of editorializing. It
seems like the fig leaf on the statue.
Oh my God, it is. It absolutely is the fig leaf on the statue.
Like people 100 years from now are going to have to figure out what the original names were again.
And not only that, but they're going to think, wow, these guys are really enlightened. They didn't have any of this. It's like, that's bullshit. It's a 300-year. It's like the idea of taking Huckleberry Finn off the shelves because of the Jim character. It's like, guys, are we losing the point of, like, are we going to eliminate these things because they make us uncomfortable?
At some point, yeah.
Because they don't. Are you going to give them historical context and say, listen, this was written during this time in American society, far from perfect, problematic in a lot of ways, but are we not permitted a chronicle or a historical record of that? It's like, listen, I'm all for the taking down these Confederate statues. I look at it like the Buffalo Bills don't have shrines themselves.
Yeah.
They lost the Super Bowl 4 times.
But at the same time, sweetly eulogizing an abusive father, it doesn't really help anybody in the family get better.
Right. You're right. But it's like are we meant to take? Yeah, exactly. But are we meant to take all these things with whole cloth?
Yeah.
And that's the danger, brother. Is that there's a gradient in all of these things. And if you're just going to say it's black, you're just going to say it's white, that's, to me, scary as shit.
Yeah.
That really is. And I think we've got to be it requires a lot of complex thought. It requires a lot of conversation. It requires a lot of difficult, awkward situations that people, frankly, do not want to put themselves in. And I get it.
Yeah.
Because if you say one wrong thing right now, there's a reticle on your face, and you're done. And that is... that's a terrifying place to be, because if you approach it the way that I go at it, I don't have a racist bone in my body. I don't have, I really don't. I don't see that shit. So to me, these things, but I completely understand why this other person, hey, watch this guy, because look what's happening now. Trump has made it okay to these casual, they're not wearing sheets anymore.
Yeah.
They're just out there marching with their tiki torches.
Yeah. Why are you cool with the mask off now?
And by the way, now you see these things, and maybe there's a proliferation of them because the media is more accessible and you can get Instagram and Facebook, but you see these people just abusing people in the street, abusing people of color. It's like, was that shit happening 5 years ago? I don't remember it. I don't remember seeing it. Those people were shamed as they should have been shamed. Yeah. Shut the fuck up. If you got I literally feel like there's an alien race out there that's looking at this planet going, hey guys, they're still basing everything on skin color. Nuke them. Literally, nuke them. Start with the dinosaurs again and let's rebuild, because they're idiots.
What sci-fi property it was where human thought was a virus and alien races were like, no, don't come near us.
Like, oh wow, that's brilliant.
You guys.
Oh shit, I love that
logic breakdown.
You're. Oh my god, that's brilliant, dude. But it is. It's like, and I think that it's I guess, dude, I always approach it with, and I don't have a political party that represents me. I really don't, because like logic, common sense, reason, and what's right, basic compassion are not represented, I think, by either side. It's like Michael Moore's film. I'm actually bummed that it didn't do better, because when you see it,
y'all did 11-9, right?
Yeah. When you see it though, brother, it's like, it really is like. It is a apolitical film in a lot of ways. Yeah, Trump gets a beating like he deserves, but Moore drags everybody. Yeah. Obama gets it, the Clintons get it, the DNC gets it worse than anybody.
I really don't understand why rank and file Republicans aren't dragging him.
I know, because I think I said this earlier today. If Trump has done anything good, and it's completely unintentional, it's that he's exposed the absolute criminal hypocrisy of those men, and that the fact they should all be run out in a rail. And when you can have Orrin Hatch waving at a woman in an elevator.
Oh man!
Kind of like this.
But
little,
if I'd made that hand gesture, I'd have lost that hand. My mom would have took that hand off.
I literally wanted to reach in an elevator and rip his head off, right? Yeah. And the fact, dude, that he thought he could do that less. He could do it with no recrimination whatsoever. Yeah. Tells you how Trump has emboldened these absolute pieces of shit like Grassley. And by the way, they're all ancient. They're all going to be dead in the 12 years that they're now saying we can't reverse irreversible climate change. They're all gone. They don't give a fuck. It's a run on the bank, and they let this guy run amok because he serves their purpose ultimately. He energizes their idiotic, myopic, racist bullshit.
Yeah, the most useful idiot in my lifetime.
The most useful idiot. I mean, dude, and by the way, and I always feel like the CIA...
I really thought W had it down.
Oh, dude, my God.
And I can't believe I'm pining.
Buddy, I mean, he looks like Churchill by comparison. Jesus Christ. Anyway.
Before we miss this movie...
Brother, pleasure.
Great talking to you.
Have you not seen it yet?
No.
Dude? Oh, dude, you're going to love it.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.